I'm Kim Daglish with the Manatee Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar entitled Doing Business with Local Government Partners. This is hosted by the Manatee Chamber. We are recording this webinar so that you will have it afterwards. If you want to watch it later on, we will send every registrant the link to access it at a later date. I'd like to give a big thank you to our webinar sponsors, Lipinski Plumbing, Pools and Air, and Veritas Pest Management. The representatives we have joining us today are Jacob Erickson. He is with Manatee County. We have Jim Freeman with the City of Palmetto, Ralph Ward with the City of Bradenton. Ruth with the School District of Manatee County was intending to join us today, but unfortunately she is under the weather. So her contact information, as with all of the panelists, will be on a slide at the end of this webinar, and you can reach out to her directly to learn more about doing business with the school district. So our apologies and her apologies for having to miss this webinar today. We have Rebecca Furta. She is with State College of Florida, Manatee, Sarasota. And then we have Eddie Beecham with USF Sarasota Manatee. So thank you to our panelists for joining us today. We appreciate your time and we appreciate all of the attendees for joining us. At this time, I am going to kick the screen over to our first panelist, Jake Erickson. He is procurement official with Manatee County. So Jake, the screen is yours.
Very good. Thank you so much, Kim. Again, thank you, Manatee County Chamber of Commerce, for putting this on. Again, just any opportunity that we can use to get out and contact the business community, we're obviously huge fans of. So to just kind of go through a little bit of Manatee County procurement. So we have a plethora of procurement vehicles of which we use in order to buy goods, services. That is also including construction. We have two primary processes. The first one is the informal competitive solicitation process. That's generally your invitations to quotes, as well as your requests for offers. It's all delineated by dollar value. So if the total project is less than $250,000, we will use an informal competitive solicitation process. If it is over that $250,000 mark, then we have to use the formal competitive solicitation process. That includes your invitation for bid, your request for proposal. If it is a engineering or one of the specialties outlined in 287-055 Florida State statute, then we have to use an RFQ again, which is the request for qualifications process. So some of the goods and services that we look for here, obviously construction is booming. It has been for the past couple of years. We're consistently putting out invitations for bids for construction. We have the procurement division is split up into sort of three specialties. We've got a construction specialty, we've got a information technology and goods specialty, and then we have a services specialty. So services include, for example, temporary staffing. We just issued a solicitation for debris management. So there's a lot of different service lines that are out there that we're actively looking for, all the way down to, again, obviously, as everybody's probably very familiar with, PPE, any type of medical supplies that our public safety department needs. The county currently has 12 departments, of which we help all of them with all their purchases. Like I said, either through the solicitation process. We also, like I said, we have we send out quote forms in order to get quotes for whatever those service lines are, and then we ultimately get that information back. And then based on the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, that is who we end up awarding to. Or we use the request for proposal method, or the RFO message, which is the request for offers, and it is based on the most qualified, given the scope of services or the scope of work that is entailed within that RFP document or RFO document. So how do you register as a vendor? So we have our primary vendor registry is through actually where we advertise all of our solicitations. It's through Periscope S2G, which is formerly known as BidSync. Again, I know that Sarasota County also uses BidSync. We're on the same exact platform. So all of our solicitations are put out onto that website or onto that software platform. And you have the ability to, anybody who's interested can go in, view the solicitation docs, pull them out, figure out if this may be a good fit for their company, and be able to submit a response based on the instructions that are outlined in that solicitation document. We also post all of our solicitations on the Bids and Proposals website, which is underneath the Manatee County procurement webpage. There's a direct link there. So anything that we post, that also includes your notice to awards to inform people who the county has decided to move forward with based on, like I said, all of the information contained within the solicitation documents. Some key factors that we see a lot with Manatee County or within Manatee County when submitting proposals. Number one, please pay attention to the minimum qualifications. This is a list of requirements that has to be met in order to be considered responsive. So from there, again, the biggest one that we see a lot is, are you registered to do business in the state of Florida with the state of Florida? So it's through through SunBiz. As long as you register your company and that it is active, then that automatically checks the box. It'll get you into the next qualification. So we base it on experience, whether or not you're a joint venture. Do you have a conflict of interest? We ask for reference checks. We check all the references that we specifically ask for. Do you have the necessary experience in order to be able to perform whatever services the solicitation calls for? That's usually found within the RFP document. That's usually your Exhibit 2. So Exhibit 1 is our scope of service. That's going to give you the overall outline of what we're primarily looking for. And then your Exhibit 2 is, again, that minimum qualifications list, as well as the form of proposal. Specifically, what is the county looking for? So we have a list of evaluation criterion that changes with every single solicitation. So if there's one kind of bit of information that I could really recommend to vendors, specifically reading the document, it's almost all of our solicitation documents are very much structured the same. So your section A is going to be all the instructions that you guys need to know. So particularly how do I submit a proposal, or how do I submit a bid? What information do I need to have? It's got a whole bunch of our standard terms and conditions that apply to whatever the solicitation is. Then we move forward into that section B, which again, in the RFP is generally going to be your scope of work as well as your proposal response. In the IFB, IFBC, that is the invitation for bid construction, it has all of the bid forms, all of the documents that we need to have. They need to be filled out, completed. Some of them do need to be notarized and submitted with your bid submission so that we can take that and make sure that we're checking the boxes when we do our due diligence, make sure that everything lines up, and so that we can move forward again with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder if it is an invitation for bid. So kind of moving into, okay, so what is some practical advice for the local business community, as well as anybody who's interested in doing business with Manatee County? The first one I always recommend is consistently look at the website. Look at our bids and proposals website. That is where we're going to post all of our solicitations that are going to go out for a competitive solicitation. Also, make sure you get in there and you register with Periscope S2G. It is free to the vendor community. They can go in and register. You guys can go in, sign up. You do have the option to make sure that I believe there's a box in there that if you check that box, you will get alert notification, sort of like Google Alerts, but it will send you anytime that we post a new solicitation, it'll send you a quick little note. I think it's an email that will go out to you and say, hey, this, whatever the title is, I'm just going to use one arbitrarily. So engineering services has been posted for advertisement. And then that way it goes in there, it gives you a link. You can pull up the document, you review the document, take a look at it, see if it's a good fit for your company. Obviously, that's one of the main first steps is number one, can you guys meet all the minimum qualifications? Can you guys do what you need to do in terms of the scope of services? And then ultimately figure out do you guys have the capacity to be able to do it? I mean, there's some companies that, they may be overloaded with work, and this just may not be a good opportunity for them at this time, but we are getting consistently advertising, consistently putting out solicitations. So again, I want to make sure that I get through that, that we get as much information out to the vendor community as possible. So my second more practical thing is that if you guys have any questions regarding the solicitation process, if there is anything that you're not quite sure, you don't necessarily know where to submit, when is the bid due, when is the request for clarification deadline, any of that, please contact procurement. Again, our telephone number is 941-749-3014. That'll put you up to the front desk, to the front operations team, and they will direct your call. The other thing too is on page 2 of virtually almost every single one of our solicitations, there is going to be a procurement representative that is outlined in that. They will have their contact information, their email address, telephone number, any of that information that you need for whoever is the procurement representative who is assigned to that requisition. please feel free to email them. We will get back to you. Again, we will touch base with whatever information that you're looking for to make sure that, again, that we answer. You know, we try to do our best to have a quick turnaround time, get those answers back out to the vendor community so they know exactly, you know, they can get their answers, and then they all ultimately can help submit a bid. I'll absolutely provide. I believe if I'm not mistaken, that Periscope S2G, there is a whole webpage that we have underneath our procurement webpage that has a step-by-step guide on how to register as a vendor. We are currently updating that because, again, like I mentioned, it was previously BidSync, but now it is Periscope S2G. So we're currently redoing our video in order to line up with the Periscope S2G nomenclature that they have on their website. So again, a lot of opportunity in Manatee County. You know, we're excited, obviously, that, you know, keeps us busy, which is a great thing. And again, we want to try to make sure that we get these solicitations out to you guys, and that we can get, again, our main goal is to shoot for the most fair and transparent and open competition that we can. That is Manatee County's. That is within our mission statement, and it is something that we hold very true to. So again, we want to make sure that we get this information out, and then ultimately we get the best value for the county so that we can move forward.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Great information. I certainly learned a bit myself. Our next panelist is Jim Freeman. He is city clerk with the city of Palmetto. Jim, the screen is yours.
Very good. Thank you, Kim. First off, I just wanted to, let's see if I can, just some contact information here. We have a person here by the name of Nixa Hazley at the city of Palmetto. She's our purchasing agent. She's located here at City Hall. So here's some contact information. We're at 516 8th Avenue West. And also her phone number there, 941-723-4570, extension 7112. We'd ask if you're going to come and make a visit, just to kind of give her a call ahead of time, and that way she can kind of plan accordingly. If you do want to come and visit City Hall, you certainly are welcome to. A lot of the things I'm going to talk about today, you see our website there, www.palmettofl.org. Many of the forms and things that I'm referencing are all contained within our website. So just wanted to put that out there as well. So if your business wanted to work with the city, you know, how do you get started? Really, there's three main forms, and those are listed here off to the right. There's a vendor registration form, and this really contains information about your company, everything that we would need to be able to register you in our system, the types of goods and products or services that you provide, as well as a W-9 form, and then an E-Verify affidavit, and that's really just having to deal with some of the state requirements as far as your employees and workers that are doing business with the city. So really, any business out there that would like to do business with the city, these are the three main forms that you need. And as I mentioned, these are on our website under the purchasing department section of our website, and they're pretty easily accessible under forms. So what types of things does the city purchase? We heard Jacob, I think, mention a few things in his presentation. Here's a list of, certainly not all inclusive, but it is some of the more common things, you know, maintenance, repair, operational items, construction services. Whenever we do, you know, do maybe a new building or a new project at Public Works, whether that be some of our wastewater treatment facilities, as well as professional services. Those are some examples: information technology, purchasing of equipment, services, office supplies, landscaping materials, utility products, road materials. So again, that's a big one for repaving within the city. So this is just a sample of some of the things that we do purchase, but wanted to provide that list to you. As far as purchasing thresholds, really we have three main thresholds, and they're driven by the price for these items. So anything under $10,000, really, you know, we're required to get one quote, and we can accept those from our vendors that we're authorized to purchase from. There's also informal competitive quotes. This would be items that would range between $10,000 up to $100,000. So I think you heard on the county, I believe their formal bid process was up to 250. At the city, we go up to 100,000 before we're required to do a formal or sealed bid or proposal. So generally in those informal competitive quotes, the city would obtain 3 quotes from vendors, and then we would select based on those quotes that we received. That last category, as I mentioned, is for our sealed bids and proposal. These would be items, goods and services that we're procuring over $100,000. This would, again, generally require formal advertisements, legal ads, etc. But those would also be posted out on our website. And again, in the same place that I mentioned under the purchasing department, I would encourage you to periodically check back there for any of those formal bid processes that we have out there. They're always posted on our website. Within those sealed bids or proposals, there are a couple different types, just a few listed here: invitations to bid and RFPs. Those are kind of 2, stands for request for proposal and invitation to bid. And I'll go into a little bit more detail, I think, on the next slide regarding those. Invitation to bids, usually these are when the materials are well defined. We know exactly what we're looking for, and the selection is based primarily on cost. It's the awards made to the lowest responsible bidder. Request for proposals, those are both are instances of sealed bids, but it could be some other things that go into the decision-making process as it relates to other things besides price. So there could be other factors which would be outlined in that formal proposal, and you would see that. And then lastly, again, I mentioned here that the purchasing department has a lot of the information that's referenced here in my presentation. One other thing I'll talk about is local preference. We sometimes get some questions about that, and we use local businesses whenever possible. We've kind of defined that as in the counties of Manatee, Sarasota County, and some of the surrounding jurisdictions must be competitive and comparable in quality. And we have some things that we do try and give priority to some of our formal solicitations for those businesses that are located either within the city limits or within the surrounding counties. And so you'll see there's some information there as it relates to those items. We also purchase through group or state contracts. So I encourage, some of the businesses out there, if you go through state of Florida, you can get on their list. And again, that's another avenue for the city. If we do go to state contracts to be able to purchase goods and services. So again, that's just another avenue for you to be able to try and to get on a state level, which we do purchase from as well. These are, again, negotiated with the state, and then the city can usually leverage or go off of some of those bids that have already been procured through the state of Florida. And as I mentioned, just in closing, a lot of the information that I've mentioned here today is on our website. I encourage you to go out there and look at it, both from bids and proposals, some of the forms that we talked about. Really, and I would go back to some of those first slides. The first step is really to get registered, contact our purchasing agent, Nixa, fill out those 3 forms to get registered in our database, complete a W-9, and then also that E-Verify affidavit. And in that way, whenever there are things, goods and services that we procure, we go to that database, look who's in there, and then usually we will send out those solicitations to those vendors first and try and procure our services and goods that way. So that's really all I had for our presentation. Again, I look forward to working with some of the businesses here in the surrounding communities, and we always are excited to work with them, and we try and keep our business local, as I stated, whenever possible. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Our next panelist is Ralph Ward. He is purchasing director with the city of Bradenton. Ralph, I will turn the screen over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank the Chamber, of course, for setting all this up, and we certainly appreciate all the work and effort that Kim has put into this. And we really value this opportunity to reach out to the community to work with vendors locally. So the city of Bradenton is a little bit different in the way that we operate with regard to the structure of the purchasing department. We are a decentralized purchasing department, which means basically that all the individual departments do their major purchasing within their own departments. The purchasing department here is under Public Works currently, and we do oversee some of the purchasing that these individual departments do. I see everything that's over like $5,000 is my threshold. So I have to approve all those purchases. So the police department, the fire department, building and zoning, folks like that, they all do their own individual purchasing. All of our purchasing currently is done on a purchase order. We do have one or two purchasing cards or Visa cards that are within the system, but they're primarily for emergency use and are used by department heads. We are currently implementing a purchasing card program that will make it a little bit easier to do some purchasing through local vendors and keep the economy going a little bit easier rather than going through a net 30 purchase order system. Our purchase orders run basically in 3 to 4 categories. Category 1 is anything that is less than $2,000, and the requirements would be primarily something like an internet search on price. We try to do our due diligence to find the biggest bang for our buck, so to speak. The next category would be $2,000 to $10,000, and we can get phone solicitations, we can get some written quotes. And then the next step is between $10,000 and $25,000. That category is our category 3, which we require written quotes, at least 3 written quotes from 3 different vendors for any of the purchases above $10,000 up to and including up to $25,000. Now, anything that is over $25,000, we require either a formal bid, we require a sole source if that's not something that we can bid out. We do utilize piggyback contracts from other solicitations within the state of Florida. And we do also use national bids like Source. The best thing for the
Ralph, I think we're having a little bit of trouble with your internet connection. Ralph, if you can hear me, I think we're having trouble with your internet connection. We're not getting your
services are for police department. Having you locked out. I apologize. Kim, are you still there?
I am.
Hello?
We missed a part of the end of that. You lost a bit of connection.
My apologies. I'm working off my phone here, so obviously my service is not the best. So I did mention that we do utilize national contracts like Sourcewell. So even though we don't necessarily bid individual items out, we do follow as many of the other solicitations as we possibly can.
Thank you, Ralph.
Okay.
I appreciate that. And then if anyone wants to follow up with Ralph for more information, you will have his contact information on the slide at the end. So Ralph, thank you so much. Next, we will hear from Rebecca Fairda. She is Director of Operations with State College of Florida, Manatee, Sarasota. Rebecca, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. As she said, I'm Rebecca Fairda. I'm the Director of Business Services for the State College of Florida. My team here and I in Business Services and Auxiliary Services, we oversee many of the college's operations, such as our third-party auxiliary operations in the bookstore and the food services area. We also manage campus facility rentals, most notably our Neal Performing Arts Center, and soon to open the Studio for Performing Arts. And last but not least, most importantly, is we also house our purchasing department. And the purpose of our purchasing department is really to serve our colleagues by assisting them throughout the purchasing process. So as Ralph had mentioned, they're decentralized over at the city of Bradenton. We are kind of a hybrid. Most of our departments will manage their own purchasing. However, it funnels through purchasing department here in my office where we review everything. So our goal here is to ensure that we're receiving the best pricing available, the best terms available, but also ensuring a fair opportunity for competition. So to begin, all of our purchases are made with a purchase order, which is a binding document between ourselves and the vendor. In order for a purchase order to be issued for any goods or services, the vendor must be set up within our system, which is as simple as completing a new vendor packet. This usually includes your W-9, a red flag vendor certification form, and then any direct deposit information if you prefer payment that way instead of receiving a check. You do not have to be a vendor in order to submit any quotes or proposals or bids, but in order for us to actually do business with you at the end and submit that payment, we do have to have you set up as a vendor. So one way to get your information to our departments is to send an email to purchasing@scf.edu. Within there, just introduce yourself, your company, and the product or service that you provide. Because we have 3 different campuses, we have varying needs within all of the departments. So we'll try to help push around the information as we see it might work best with each department. Our departments will also reach out to all of our local vendors as well as national or even international, seeking out any information they may need. So if you don't hear directly from my team, it's very likely you'll hear from one of my colleagues throughout the college. As everyone said before, we do also utilize state contracts and any co-op agreements. These are usually negotiated by our sister colleges, the state of Florida, or on a national level, such as Sourcewell and Omnia is another one. So we've got a couple of options out there. They do allow for piggybacking, so we will try to use that if the services or the goods do match our needs. For anything that does not have a state contract available or is specifically geared towards a college, we'll post all of our competitive bids up on vendorlink.scf.edu. Here, all of the vendors are able to register. They also receive notices for any upcoming bids as well as current bids, and they're also able to view the history. All of our bid information is communicated through VendorLink, regardless of the project. So if you log on and register, you'll see that there's bids from anywhere from market compensation analysis to temp services to construction that's taking place. Everything will be posted through VendorLink, and all of the updates are also posted on VendorLink. So the biggest tidbit that I can give on that is to read the directions. There's a lot of requirements, and there's specific requirements within each bid that if you don't follow or don't submit properly, then your bid would be considered non-responsive. So always read the fine detail. And again, all submission requirements are going to be listed on the notice. So my department specifically, we handle a lot of online submissions, whereas the facilities department still accepts physical hard bids. So it just depends on what the service or product is that we're looking for, and that'll kind of help us determine on what or how we'll accept those submissions. Now, as far as what requires us to bid out, whenever we're purchasing any goods or services, we do have an established guideline specific to us, but are in line with the purchasing reference manual for the Florida college system. So for us, any purchases up to $4,999 require at least one comparative quote. We tend to be a little bit more flexible because that's below our capital asset limit. However, purchases that are over $5,000 up to $64,999 do require 3 comparative quotes. And when we say 3 comparative quotes, we want apples to apples. So if we're looking for a specific model of computer, it really needs to be that specific model so that we have 3 comparable decisions to make, or quotes to review. Anything over $65,000, that's when we're required to do a competitive public bid. Any exceptions to this would be any services or products that are purchased through the state contract, or again, those co-op agreements. As far as working with local vendors, we love to work with local vendors. We would like to expand that, especially moving into this year. You know, when COVID hit and we had to find supplies for PPE, I actually had more luck working with my local vendors just within the Manatee, Sarasota, Charlotte County than I did working with our big contracts. So that really, that's really helped us drive that focus on what else can we gather that's right here in our backyard. So a lot of the marketing material that we work with is done here on site. No, sorry, not on site, but here in Manatee County. A lot of our products and whatnot, we really try to drive out through any local vendors. So any information that you can provide to us, we'll be more than happy to help navigate it through the different departments, working within our CAM department. As far as any marketing, really send it to purchasing at scf.edu and we can help navigate with you guys. So, but yeah, that's what I have. Thank you.
Rebecca, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Our final speaker is Eddie Beecham. He is Regional Vice Chancellor for Business and Finance with University of South Florida, Sarasota, Manatee. Eddie, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Kim. Good afternoon, everybody. Doing businesses with government. How the University of South Florida handles purchasing. So, as you've heard from the others, we are also a decentralized purchasing. We have a decentralized purchasing model. The University of South Florida is made up of 3 campuses, Tampa, St. Pete, and our Sarasota Manatee campus. And we maintain a budget on each of those 3 campuses. The budget's allocated out to each of the department heads, both on the academic side and the administrative side. And those department heads determine the needs for their departments. Similar to State College of Florida, we also have a centralized procurement services office that coordinates all of this, supports all of the different departments, maintains all the bid documentation. All of the information I'm going over today can be found at the link here on the screen under USF, Business and Finance, and Purchasing. So how do we find our suppliers? First, we maintain an inventory of all the suppliers that we've used over the past in a Rolodex. And so this information is shared across the campus and across all of the University of South Florida. We also have an inventory of the supply contracts that we have in place currently. And you can register as a supplier by sending an email to the supplier setup at usf.edu, and we'll send you the link where you can enter all of your information and become a part of this inventory. We're always looking for diversity, minority-owned businesses, and we, when we receive bids, we try to get a bid from at least one of a diversity-owned company. We work with the Chambers of Commerce, and of course, we look at referrals from other state agencies, from the New College of Florida, State College of Florida, Sarasota Manatee campuses. We'll issue invitations to negotiate from our website, and for our facilities operations, both architect, engineering, construction management, mechanical, and plumbing, we use continuing services contract agreements. And these are bid competitively and usually run from a 3 to a 5 year period. So where does the money go? The Sarasota Manatee campus has about a $30 million operating budget. 78% of that is spent on payroll. So of the 30, about 23.4 goes to payroll, another 6% goes to utilities, and the remainder, 16% or $4.8 million is what we have to operate on for the year. How is that 16% spent? You can see the different services here. The large bulk go to services, repair, minor renovations, travel, printing, furniture, food and beverage, telephone, all the different areas is where we spend our 16% of our operating budget. So for services that are between $0 and just under $5,000, we need at least one quote. From $5,000 up to $24,999, we need 2 to 3 verbal or written quotes. From $25,000 to $75,000, we require 3 written quotes, and anything over $75,000, we require an invitation to negotiate. Or we can piggyback, as others have said, on other agency solicitations. What can suppliers do to find more business? Well, we will certainly take a distribution of information and materials. Our purchasing agent on the Sarasota Manatee campus is Michelle Krager, and her email is listed here, mkrager@usf.edu. Please sign up for our supplier registration database. We review this database regularly and are always looking for new suppliers. And watch our website for any of the bids that are over $75,000 that require 3 written bids. And this website will also have our invitations to negotiate. So I can make a copy of this PowerPoint presentation available to anyone that needs it. And that kind of covers the end of my presentation. So back to Kim.
Eddie, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And thank you to every one of our panelists. Your presentations were incredibly informative. I hope our attendees today here learned a lot more about the purchasing process with each of these departments. I certainly learned a lot, and it will help us in the future, us at the Chamber, better connect our members with each of these government partners. We will now turn it over to Q&A. I will read the questions to our panelists. So first question I have is, for a new business in the county with new technology and services, how can we bid when references are required? So Jake, are you able to, you want to give that question a go?
Sure. So that's something that we get a lot of, especially with the proliferation of technology and the way that the world is going. Some of the options that we do have is that we have, if you do not have the specific references that are required for maybe a certain solicitation, we always accept unsolicited proposals, where that information is sent to either the department or specifically sent to the procurement division. And then we will review that, take a look at it, and then work with the departments, disseminate that information out to the department so that they can review it and see if it's something that might fit their business model.
Great, thank you. Eddie?
Yeah, I would say about the same thing. We definitely want these companies to register with USF, and we will take that information and work with them, contact them, be in contact with them, try to determine what their expertise are and how we can align them with different purchasing opportunities across our campuses.
Our next question, how are emergency services awarded when time is a constraint to mediate damages? For example, water damage, fire damage, storm, etc.
I'll answer that for the city.
Okay, Ralph?
Okay, so if we have an emergency situation that needs immediate attention, our director will usually go directly to our city council and present that to city council along with the vendor and any kind of estimated charges that may be involved or costs that may be involved. And then city council will either approve it or disapprove it at that time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anyone else have a different answer? Jake, looks like you're unmuting.
Yes, ma'am. So the way in which the county does it. So again, we have an entire emergency purchase procedure that is in place where if it is something like, say, a water main breaks in a building, again, the department has the full autonomy to go out and take care of those services with whoever that may be. Again, generally, kind of what Eddie was saying, that we've got essentially a Rolodex full of businesses that we will contact. Then we will start to kind of kickstart the emergency process. That involves, again, contacting the county administrator, getting approval to move forward with whoever that is, first verbally, and then there is a written memo that is also associated with that emergency purchase in order to fulfill whatever that service is.
Great, thank you. Rebecca's shaking her head. It sounds like it might be similar for them. All right, next question. A few of you mentioned your interest in doing business with local companies. Do you give priority to local businesses, or how does a local business, maybe a different question, way to word it is, how does a local business compete with a national company?
In our formal sealed solicitations, sometimes we do, we have in the past assigned some points to certain types of local businesses. So there might be some additional points awarded in those certain circumstances. For some of those informal solicitations, again, based on the database, we're looking at, first we're looking at where are there some local, businesses that are out there that can provide the services or goods that we're looking for. And oftentimes we'll reach out to them, directly based on those that have registered in our database.
Great, thank you. Rebecca, did you want to add?
Yeah, so one of the things about local businesses is they have a slight advantage because in most cases you don't have an extreme amount of shipping and handling costs. So they're able to competitively bid by taking out that cost and getting the delivery to you a little bit quicker. And same thing for minority owned and women owned businesses. We do have points specifically allotted to that in our bid process. So if they are registered with the state and they are certified and can provide that certificate, then they automatically earn an additional 5 points, as opposed to others that may not be. So, we try our best to look for the advantages where it's possible. And we understand too, with local businesses, you sometimes don't have the operating power that a national chain may have, but that's okay. It really just depends on what we're looking for. And as everyone has said, the qualifications and the expertise that you're able to bring to the table. So.
Great, thank you. Jake, anything to add for the county?
Yeah, no, absolutely. When we advertise, we specifically make sure that we send it to the Manatee County Chamber of Commerce. We send it to the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce, the Latin Gulf Coast Chamber of Commerce, Builders Exchange. So we try to get the information out as much as we can, right? So we want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to see these bids and see whatever the solicitations are. The other kind of nice caveat, as I mentioned when I was going through my discussion, was that the informal bidding process is that what we can do is that if it is an informal bid or an informal, say if it's an invitation to quote, we directly solicit, and we can directly solicit to however many vendors either the department recommends to us. Again, we go through our vendor registry. We can type up or we can bring up a local proximity of to where these companies are, and if they have the right NIGP commodity code, we're able to send it directly to them instead of advertising it nationwide. So it's a little bit more of a targeted solicitation rather than just blasting it out for anybody and everybody to see nationwide. So that's something that we have utilized a lot in the past. Kind of like Rebecca was saying, within our RFP documents, we have some of the evaluation criterion that the evaluation committee looks at. We do specifically outline, what benefits are you going to bring to the local community? What, are you going to hire locally? Do you have an office that is located here in, the Bradenton, Manatee County area? And then that is also taken into further consideration throughout the evaluation process.
Terrific, thank you. Eddie, anything to add on your side?
Yeah, we're really focusing last year and this year on diversity-owned businesses. And so anything that's requiring 3 bids or more, we're trying to at least have one from a minority-owned, women-owned business.
Ralph, anything to add?
Sure. Pretty much the same thing. We do issue awarded points for locally owned businesses whenever we can.
Great, thank you. And Eddie and Rebecca both mentioned something related to my next question, and that is, do you have any special programs for minority businesses? And so I know Eddie and Rebecca, you mentioned your point system. Anyone else, Jake, Jim, Ralph, with regards to programs specifically for minority-owned businesses?
Yes, ma'am. So that is something that we're actively digging into, right? So I think, I think Eddie hit the nail right on the head in that is an absolute focus of Manatee County. We need to be able to get that information out. The biggest thing that I think that we're doing in particular is the communication / learning aspect, is teaching local businesses as well as minority-owned businesses who may not have a lot of experience submitting bids to the county, but getting out in front of them saying, hey, this is exactly everything that you need to follow. Here's all of the instructions, all the directions, so that they have an opportunity. That's what we found at least a lot with Manatee County, is that they just don't have a lot of experience submitting bids. So we want to make sure that we break down that information very, very easily so that they can follow it all the way through. And again, hopefully that'll continue to promote the ability of that they have in order to submit bids to the county.
Great, thank you. Now, a number of you mentioned the importance of, and Jake, you really hit home on this, the importance of following the steps and the requirements asked for each proposal. Are there any, other than not following the instructions, are there any recurring mistakes that you see that can be easily avoided? So if we have business owners on with us today that have never submitted a bid to your government agency before, are there some tips inside information that you can give them to kind of help them with that learning curve?
So my biggest recommendation from the county viewpoint is, if you don't know, ask. That's the biggest thing that we see a lot of, is just like, oh, I didn't realize that I had to have that form filled out, or I didn't realize that I had to do this, or I didn't have my license for, the additional requirement. The biggest thing that I can always recommend vendor community is just ask the question. We've got a staff of 16 people, soon to be 18. So we've got a lot of people who understand procurement very well. Do not be at all hesitant to give us a call, shoot us an email. Again, purchasing@mymanatee.org. That is the general office email account that is monitored daily. It's constantly up on our operations team's email or on their computers, so that if there's any questions that the vendor community has, please do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we'll help walk you right through the steps.
Thank you. Anyone else? Rebecca, you have some tips?
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I absolutely agree. On all of our solicitations, there is a contact number of somebody that you can call and ask the questions to. So that is the person you should contact. A lot of times we'll put out a bid for a different department or a different area, and we'll have submitters try and respond to that department head or somebody within that area. They're not as familiar with the process, and so really that information that you need is going to be through the purchasing agent. Mainly because we also have a cone of silence. So once a committee starts with the bidding process, we're not supposed to talk about it with vendors, with anyone throughout the college, unless we're within the committee meeting. So again, go to the purchasing director or purchasing contact that's on the information, not anyone else, because they will have the information you need.
Great. Jim?
Kim, just one thing I would add there too, is in addition to contacting the purchasing agent on those formal bids, oftentimes there's a pre-conference or a pre-bid conference, and I would highly encourage those vendors to attend that, because they can be very educational and you can learn a lot. Also gives you an opportunity to ask about whatever the solicitation is, or process questions. So, more often than not, those conferences are usually, a few weeks after the bids or the solicitations go out, and I would encourage those businesses to attend those.
Great, thank you.
The other thing too is there's always usually a question period where you can submit your questions. For us, it's 2 weeks before the bid closes, so that we can answer those. So a lot of the questions are repetitive, but that's okay, because they may ask something slightly different. So you get a lot of information from that. So do not be afraid to ask the questions during that posting period, because you're going to find out a lot more information than you thought you might need.
Great, thank you. Or Jake, I had a question. Is Periscope truly free to obtain the bids? someone has found that there's been a fee.
So my understanding of it is, again, yes. Periscope S2G is free for vendors. We used to be on Demand Star, which did charge the vendors to be able to use it. But again, that's why we recently we switched over. I believe it was February of 2020. So we've had it about a year now. And to my understanding that there is no charge associated with registering as a vendor.
Okay, great. So I would encourage attendees, if you run into a challenge with that, especially with Periscope, reach out to Jake or the folks on his team. Anyone else, Eddie?
No, we would do the same as Jacob saying. I mean, we're happy to help. You can contact me. You can contact our purchasing office, and we'll share whatever we can share to help.
Oh, I have one more question that I will put out there. If your bid is not selected, is there a way to find out why so that you can improve your bid process the next time? Anyone? Do y'all offer feedback when their bid isn't chosen? Jake, I see you unmuted.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So again, within Manatee County, one of the things that we do very much appreciate is, again, going through a debrief. So we can set, the vendors can set up a meeting with us if they submitted an unsuccessful bid, and we will walk through and kind of explain why their bid was not chosen. Again, it's when it's price driven, when it's your invitation for bid or your ITQ, it's pretty self-explanatory. You just weren't the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. But we found that it's very valuable, especially if it's in the RFP process or the request for offers process, to kind of give the vendors who are not necessarily successful a little bit more feedback so that they can improve it the next time around.
In closing, on behalf of the Manatee Chamber, thank each of you for joining us. We truly appreciate your time and the education that you've provided to our members. For our attendees, I mentioned on your screen, you will have, in a part of this presentation that you will receive the recording of, you have contact information for each of our panelists, but do keep in mind that they aren't necessarily the ones assigned to the jobs that you want to inquire about. So keep an eye on the website for that information. I want to again thank our webinar sponsors, Lipinski Plumbing, Pools and Air, and Veritas Pest Management. We are so grateful for their continued support, and I thank you all for attending.